We offer more than 80 classes. These are classes around socialization. So we're always trying to develop skills and enrich our families and participants so that they can be as independent and successful as possible. And that's basically what we do. We do readiness programming, recreational, social. But that's, we created something out of what we wanted and what we needed. It's always been parent driven and it's always been family driven. And as our kids are getting older, they're starting to drive it, which is really neat.
Welcome back to Mother's Guide Through Autism podcast. I'm Bridget Shipman. I'm your host. Today, I'm going to be speaking with Sarah Milko and Lisa Ponticello. And I am really excited about this conversation because I think it will be inspirational to any of you who are listening that find it difficult to find resources or help in your area. This is just a fascinating story about how they've created not only support, but education and resources and so many other things with the work that they're doing. And so I want to welcome Sarah and Lisa to our show today.
Thanks for having us, Bridget. We're really happy to be here. Thanks for giving us an opportunity to talk about AutismUp and what we've done as parents. I'm sure like you, we're so busy that sometimes we don't take enough time to reflect on where we've come from and what we've done. And so this is a nice, relaxing opportunity to do that. So thank you.
You are welcome. And welcome, Lisa, to
Thank you very much. We're very excited. Sarah and I always say we don't have enough time to do what we love to do the most, which is talking about our story and just talking about the strength of our community and, what we're trying to do for the betterment of our own children and thousands more. So thanks for having us and giving us the opportunity.
Well, as always, it's my honor. I feel like what I do with the Mother's Guide and Joseph, my son too, is we're just trying to spread knowledge, hope, and inspiration. And so you both sharing your personal stories is for me, I can't hear enough of stories like this because I do think it offers hope. I coach so many moms that I literally hear them say, I just don't feel any hope for the future. And so both of you have been on this journey a while that we'll talk about. But if I'll start with you, Sarah, tell us,
Sure.
And then we'll have Lisa answer the same question about who you are and what you do and how you came to do it.
Sure. So I have the privilege and honor. I always like to say that because I feel like I've got the best job in the world. I'm the CEO and a founder of AutismUp, and we are a 20-year-old parent-led organization that I started with my colleagues and Lisa and several other moms 20 years ago. And my middle son, I have 3 children. My middle son just turned 24 in May. He was diagnosed with autism October 16th, 2002. And, it's been an uphill battle ever since, right? And I'm really grateful that I found these other moms to share this journey with. And I think the one thing we all have in common is that we weren't willing to kind of roll over and let this take over. We have all been really strong in our resolve to make sure that not only our kids, but other kids with a similar diagnosis have absolutely the best opportunities out there for them. And we're fighting that good fight every day. But that's really where, that's my story. That's how I got here where I am today.
Yeah, with a lot of heart. Yeah, I hear that. Yeah, and Lisa?
Well, my story, like Sarah, it was born of my second child. My son was diagnosed at the age of 2 or just over 2.5 with autism in January of 2004. He is turning 22 in just a few short weeks. And frankly, it's a really scary time for us, 20 years into this, 22 years now with him, and we are at what we like to call the cliff. But going back to 2004, I was feeling pretty alone, pretty isolated. I mean, I have a very supportive family. I had a lot of friends also with young children, but I was not feeling like I could connect with them anymore. My challenges just were so different. And I came across this group of women, other moms just like me, that really brought me into the fold and just kind of pulled me out of the hole that I was in, so to speak. And as I started to get involved, it became my mantra that although I couldn't control what was happening, with my son's diagnosis and, the path that my life was taking, I thought I could definitely get involved in something that I could actually influence. I wanted to have a role and be able to do something positive for him. And this group, I like to say I ran towards them, and that's how I got started. And I'm so grateful. I consider them my family, my closest friends and confidants, and we're going through this life together. So.
Yeah. I always share with Lisa, one of my favorite stories, the first time Lisa and I ever met, there was a small group of us sitting around my dining room table, and we had decided we were going to do an autism awareness fundraiser. We were going to try and raise a little money to get word out about this organization we were starting. And Lisa had found out about it, and she came and she's sitting next to me. And I was really stressed that morning because my then 4-year-old had taken all of his brother's Legos and had flushed them down the toilet. And my toilet was completely overflowing. And I had all these other moms in my house. And I was kind of sharing this with Lisa. She sat next to me and she said, "Oh, you know what? I've had car keys. I've had everything go down the toilet. You got to learn how to pull the toilet yourself, take it off so you can do your own plumbing. And then you don't have to call in and, a plumber and spend all this money." And I was like, oh my God, that's my type of mom, right? And it's kind of a good analogy of how I think we've always done things. We're like, we can do this together. We don't need other people. We got each other. We can do anything. So that's kind of how it started 20 years ago.
That's
Wow.
absolutely right.
Yeah, that's true. It's amazing what we can do when we have that support and friendship behind us. It's like, that's one of the first things I ask a mom who is new to all of this, right? New to the diagnosis, new to this journey. And I say, do you have support? And so both of you just sharing that, it's just an affirmation how important it is. So if there's a mom listening and she feels similar to the way both of you just described it, find support, find support. I would love for you both, what I talk about a lot is the how we each deal differently, but there's so many similarities once you receive that autism diagnosis and some of the struggles. Just what were your experiences with that?
Sure. I think initially, again, back in 2002, autism was still a fairly new diagnosis. And I remember my initial reaction and my husband's initial reaction was absolute denial that, whoa, they've got this really wrong. And the doctor had given us a little bit of hope by calling it, was it PDD, Lisa? Is that what they used to call it? Pervasive
PDD-NOS.
developmental. Yeah. So we are like, okay, so it's not autism, right? We'll take that PDD-NOS and we'll run with that all day long, right? And I want to say that lasted about 6 months. And then the more research I started to do online, and, internet was pretty new. The web was pretty new. So the timing was great because we had access to a whole bunch of information. You no longer had to go to the library to look up stuff or check books out, but you could sit up late at night on your laptop and review all that information. But I would say the biggest first thing was denial. And then once acceptance started to kind of settle in, then it was, as Lisa mentioned, it was isolation. I mean, we were just alone for a number of years before we connected with other parents. And I still say that was our biggest mistake. We were, I think as a parent, your initial reaction is to be so protective. You just want to protect your child from any type of criticism or looking different or acting different. And my initial reaction was just to shelter him from any type of criticism. So that isolation was, kind of twofold. It was self-created, but there was really no other option out there. There was nobody else to connect with.
Mhm. Yeah, it is. I get the denial thing. And also that diagnosis was very popular at the beginning when autism was first being diagnosed. I know Joseph was diagnosed with the same thing. It's just like we don't know. So we know it's something like that, but here you go. But it's very daunting and overwhelming at first. So I hear that. And with you, Lisa, was it similar to?
It was similar in terms of, my son, after we went for our evaluation, which we had to wait a little bit of time for, and it was only actually that I started to pursue that because I had a very close friend, interesting story, from college at the time, who was a journalist, and she was doing some research and doing some work on autism, and she was learning about it, and she had come for a visit, and she watched me and my son interacting, and he was doing a lot of where he was just, making vocalizations and pulling me places. And he wasn't using a lot of language at all. In fact, it was mostly just like squealing and screaming. And I had gotten so used to it. And she said to me, and this had to be the hardest thing to do as a friend, I think, at the time. She said to me, "Have you ever considered he might have autism?" And I think if it were not her, anybody else, I would have been just absolutely just floored and angry with her to consider such a thing. But she really did open up my eyes, because as I had been talking to my pediatrician at regular visits about, he's not really talking a lot, or he was talking and now he's been a little quieter. The pediatrician always said to me, "Well, he has an older sister," and she would always be with us, and she was a chatterbox, and he would say, "What, he doesn't need to talk. She talks for him, don't worry about it," and kept pushing me off. So the long and short of it is I pushed back on the pediatrician and said, I have brought this up, and now somebody else is bringing it up, and I'd like to get him evaluated. And I'm really grateful that I pushed that, because it could have been another year for all the pediatrician cared at that point. So we went through and we were able to see the developmental pediatrician, and yes, we got that diagnosis of PDD-NOS, pervasive development disorder, not otherwise specified. And the interesting thing, though, is that the pediatrician actually said to me, "Well, it's not autism, it's PDD-NOS." And I remember the sigh of relief that I felt. Anyhow, with my husband and I, we were like, "Oh, phew, it's not autism." But in walking out with that diagnosis, it made me very hopeful that I was like, "Okay, what do we need to do? We just have to have some speech therapy. We'll do this, X, Y, Z, and he'll be all caught up," right? And so that was the mindset that I had. I didn't, I just thought it was going to resolve itself. And that, for me, I think that was interesting, because it made me take a little bit longer to go through kind of what I would call the grieving process, where I was, ready to admit to myself that our path was going to be a little bit different. So, and it was just, that was my approach and my story. So.
Yeah, I think hearing that for the first time, it's very, very overwhelming. I know it was for me too, and very similar to both of your stories, in that getting the diagnosis of PDD, not otherwise specified, NOS. I was like, okay, whew, all right. Yeah, because I was a teacher. I can do this. And then as time moves on, you realize, okay, well, we have a pretty wide range that is being diagnosed with that. I think to just the both of you bringing up grief, denial, moving into all the different emotions that come along with it. I talk about that all the time, because you can have all different stages of grief in the same day, and I try to, and talk to other parents that are getting these diagnoses, just like that's why the support and these conversations like what we're having are so important to that. And so as a result, I love this background and how you have made your own family, I guess I could call it that, with
Mhm.
Autism Up. Will you share with what Autism Up is? Anything about it that we want our listeners to know for both of you?
Go ahead, Lisa. Lisa's our marketing and chief developmental officer. So she is really gifted at talking about who we are and why we do what we do. So I'll let you run with it, Lisa.
Oh, thank you, Sarah. And I'll probably bumble my way through this now, even though I feel like, I talk about this a lot. And, what we are is we are a community of families, really. We are the leading local autism support organization in the greater Rochester, New York area and the surrounding communities. But what's really neat is that we started out, as Sarah mentioned, as just four moms kind of getting together and finding each other. It was really before the internet was big and stuff. So it was through some teachers and other parents, but finding each other and talking late into the night at a coffee shop about some of the different therapeutic interventions and different things that we were learning about, whether it was diet or it was about, social types of therapies, whether it was DIR therapy versus ABA and all of those things. What I think we're most proud of is that from that four group came, four more, and then came eight more, and then came 12 more. And the organization continued to grow. And today we support 3,700 plus families. We continue to grow. We really saw, as the diagnosis rate just continued to keep moving up, so did the people looking for support and came to our family. And, today we started out just providing support to one another and really sharing information and resources. But from there, we realized that our own children didn't have the same opportunities as their typically developing siblings.
Mhm.
So we set forth to put an end to that and to start to actually create programs that we wished existed for our children with autism. So that started with a summer camp. And I'm sure Sarah could tell you a lot more about that as well. But all of our kids, enjoyed that, and a bicycle riding camp. And then it moved into things like just where our kids' interests lied. So a lot of our kids, they were interested in Legos, whether they were interested in building them or flushing down the toilet, whatever it was, we'd get them together. And we, as the moms and the parents, would facilitate these, little play dates around things that they were interested in. And in the meantime, we were teaching our kids on our own how to be social and how to connect and communicate and some appropriate behaviors. And, we as moms were getting the support that we needed and, lifting one another up. So that's who we are. Today we, I don't want to get too ahead of myself, but we offer more than 80 classes. These are classes around socialization. So we're always trying to develop skills and enrich our families and participants so that they can be as independent and successful as possible. And that's basically what we do. We do readiness programming, recreational, social. But that's, we created something out of what we wanted and what we needed. It's always been parent driven and it's always been family driven. And as our kids are getting older, they're starting to drive it, which is really neat.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So passing the baton,
Mhm.
what starts out as, our hearts as moms, and then to see your kids getting involved in that's really special.
Yeah, it's something where we're very into referencing a circle of support. So, we know that that starts with parents looking for information and support, and we help them navigate as they navigate their autism diagnosis in the early stages of that. And eventually they come in and they're looking to learn more, just like we were. And eventually from there, they want to involve their children because they trust us and they feel like they're safe and in a supportive environment. And it just kind of keeps evolving from there. Our big goal has always been to lift families with autism up. And, hence the name Autism Up. and our families and the parents that are involved and the community knows that we're not going anywhere. We will be here as our children grow up and become adults with autism. So that's really the reality for us.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really powerful. And I like the sustainability piece, right? Because, I've been around long enough to see organizations have that passion at the beginning and then that they tend to fizzle and they don't exist anymore. I know locally that's happened several times. And so the fact that you all are growing and you're adding to it and you already know that you're going to keep going no matter what, even as your children are becoming adults. Because I do think there's a real adult transition too, that can be difficult as as Joseph went from high school to post-secondary life, right? Making those decisions for him was very difficult. So I can see how as your journey grows, so does the education and where your resources and where you go with it. Um, your approach is every great climb begins with a step up. Tell us what that means.
Mm-hmm. Sarah, do you want
Sure, yeah.
a little bit
So
about that?
what we mean by that is that you need to take that first step, and we want to guide you on that first step, right? But we're in it for the long haul. It's a journey, and we want families to feel embraced and supported and not isolated. And it's really about taking that first step. I mean, it's that simple. We have this vision, support throughout the lifespan, being able to start and find AutismUp and the support you need when your child is first diagnosed, but that has to be throughout the lifespan in whatever manner your family or your loved one needs. So our journey is still really only starting, even though our kids are in their 20s.
Yeah.
We want to make sure that we peacefully know that our children who are now young adults have the supports and the opportunities throughout their lifespan. I think that's what continues to motivate all of us every day. I mean, it's really that simple.
Yeah. And I don't think we're not fearful of saying that the struggle for many families is really real. It's hard.
Yeah.
It's
Hmm.
not, it's not going to be easy, but it is a journey. And there are people that will, walk alongside of you and are walking right ahead of you and you can follow them. And that's really the whole context. Just take it one step at a time and we'll be there with you.
And I wish I was mentally prepping for this today, Bridget. I was thinking to myself, geez, if I could go back and give my naive self any advice or any new parents any advice, when your child is first diagnosed, and maybe the atmosphere has changed a bit, and I think it has. I'm hopeful that it has, but it seemed so limiting 20 years ago, and I think we as parents weren't willing to accept that. And I knew, in my heart that, wow, my son has so much to offer and we need to, push and make sure he has all these opportunities. And it's worked. It's really important, I think, for families to know that, yeah, it's going to be hard work. It's going to be a different path, a different journey, but it'll work, and it's going to be okay. And it's okay. It's a different journey, but it's okay. And boy, can it be fulfilling and inspiring on a daily basis. And it's a lot better than I expected. 20 years ago, I didn't believe that, but I certainly do now. And it's not easy, as Lisa was saying. It's not easy, but it's okay.
Yeah. And we hope that we're helping to lift these families up from uncertainty about their future. We're all uncertain. I mean, we're at where Sarah is right now and her son Ted, and where I am right now and where my son Alex is. I mean, I'm not certain about the future, and we've got a long way ahead of us. I used to always say, we were really good. We grew up with our kids and we built programs and we built services and supports that took them up through the age of 18 and into their transition years. And now building programs for that period from 18 to 80. And where I'm uncertain about where maybe things look at 40, 50, 60, I'm getting much more clarity about what things look for my son in the next 10 years because of the programs that we're building and the opportunities that are out there now. You know, it's just, it just comes with, like Sarah said, 20 years ago, it was different, but there are a lot more opportunities out there, but we have to keep building them. They're not going to build themselves.
Right.
So,
And you got to take action. You can't sit back and
got to take action.
let other people tell you how it's going to be.
Mhm.
But you know, and what's really exciting is starting to teach our own adult children that, and teaching them how to advocate for themselves. You know, for so many years, my son was so used to everybody telling him what to do that, you know, the last couple of years we've really had to focus on, no, listen, I want to know what you want to do. He, for many years, and still will spend time trying to figure out what he thinks I want the answer to be, right? And teaching him, no, you get to choose. This is your decision. Where do you want to go? How do you want it to be? And that's interesting. I think so many kids with disabilities going through the system aren't given that opportunity. And then all of a sudden they're young adults and they're like, I don't know how to navigate this without, you know, my mom or a teacher or somebody telling me what I'm supposed to do. So that's been an interesting component of all of this, but it's exciting, you know.
Mhm.
Yeah, I agree. I absolutely, when everything's been planned out and scheduled for them their whole lives, and then there's gonna start making choices and decisions and adulting, and it's it is really tough to go from that into that. So I love that you're bringing that up, because I do think that it's challenging. I mean, the whole, like what you were saying earlier, it's all a struggle, but they're older now and they have life decisions that we want, because after all, the goal is for our kids to be happy and to be able to use their gifts, because they do have so many gifts.
Mm-hmm.
And then how to navigate that. So I really think that's important. And that's part of what creating a lifelong community that you had mentioned when I asked what that was. And for the kids, their caregivers and their siblings, I think that's really important to talk about too. So can you talk about why that's so important to have that lifelong community being created?
Sure. So, you know, even though Lisa had mentioned, you know, we're up to, I think she said 70 or 80 different programmatic offerings we have for individuals of all ages, but really at the core of who we are is based around community and support. We have a really robust navigation and support services component to AutismUp, and we make sure that siblings are supported, excuse me, grandparents are supported, whoever really needs it, whoever's important, and a loved one of the individual who's on the spectrum, we make sure that they're being coached and guided and heard, you know, and it's so vital, because if that social network isn't robust and supportive, it makes it even more challenging for our loved ones who have autism. So we make sure from the time of diagnosis that families have an opportunity to meet with what we call our family navigator, and they're kind of welcomed into the autism circle, and resources are made available to them. And it comes with, sometimes it's just one of our navigators just listening to a mom or a grandparent who is new to the diagnosis, and just hearing what they have to say, and telling them, yeah, you got this. You know, sometimes that's all that's needed, but other times it's a lot more. It's, how do I make sure my child is getting what they deserve educationally? How do I make sure, you know, my son or daughter has the resources they need to be, you know, more social, or to get the exercise they need? I mean, we just make sure that foundational navigation support is always going to be there.
Yeah, and what's nice about our navigation program, that Sarah didn't mention, but it's of importance, is that our navigators are mothers themselves. They're parents of children with autism themselves. So, it's almost recreating that 2004 group that came together and started sharing information, or a little bit more accessible though. In this case, they take calls morning, noon, and night. And they do this by reassuring and sharing information and pointing people in the right direction. It's a wonderful thing.
Yeah, so important. I talk to so many newly diagnosed moms, parents, and they get the diagnosis, they get the top 3 therapies, that are popular at the time, and away they go, and there is no emotional support for these parents. And so I think with that in itself, that gives them the strength and love and support that they need to be able to take that first step. I just think it's wonderful what your program has to offer. I love that Autism Up is guided by uncompromising values. Let's talk about that.
Mhm. That's so a few years ago, in the midst of all of our growing, we really just decided that we needed to, sit down and just put some things on paper that really were core to our values and how we wanted to keep growing. And what that really refers to is just, our purpose is to challenge boundaries, really, that society has established for people with autism. And we want to make sure we're lifting families up from uncertainty. But where we won't compromise in doing any of that is we're not going to settle for limited solutions. I mean, that's one of the big things, and narrow definitions that dictate what we're going to offer. We always knew that we wanted to be innovative. We wanted to make sure that we were creating things that didn't otherwise exist, but also recognize that people with autism spectrum disorder are, a lot of times the programs and services that are out there or that people want to push us into are trying to put a square peg in a round hole kind of thing. So we've really made sure that we strive to continually learn cutting edge approaches, and we want to deliver them through our programming, and we want to attract quality, well-trained people to run these programs with us. And we want to make sure that these are people who are super engaged and they believe what we believe. And in doing that and sticking to those values, we have grown from a group of moms volunteering to a bigger group of volunteers to now where we actually have a staff of, Sarah, I'm going to say it wrong, but I believe that we have about 60 part-time support coaches. We do have full-time program facilitators, and it's just we will make sure that we will support people and meet people where they're at while we're creating these opportunities. And we just want to make sure that everybody is able to be successful, in doing that. So those are our uncompromising values.
Yeah, I love that too. I think it's as you both have been on this journey, like you said, 20 years plus, and I have too. Joseph is 32 now. What I love about that is that I continue to learn and grow, and so I can see why you want to keep innovating, keep adding, keep growing, because since I started this podcast, I learned so much from other parents. And so the community that you've created, absolutely, those values to continue and to grow and just to implement that. Your growth is just like, I'm like absorbing everything you just said, Lisa. I'm like, wow, that's amazing. Community seems to be, and I think this is what you were saying earlier, community seems to be a key aspect for navigating autism successfully, but it is lacking for a lot of families, which we've mentioned around the country. So what can parents do if they don't have organizations like Autism Up in their own communities.
Yeah, I mean, one of the benefits of COVID, right? We all use Zoom, we all interact virtually. I mean, I'm not sure this would have happened, right? All of us connecting this way prior to COVID. I think our world became a lot smaller and it's a lot easier to connect. Find your people, whether they're, down the street or halfway across the country. They're out there. There's unbelievable resources online where you can connect. Even through AutismUp, we have a private Facebook page that is just for parents or caregivers. We screen everybody before they get in to make sure, they are a parent or a caregiver. And that really provides an open forum for parents to connect at whatever time of day to ask questions, whether it's about potty training or about, how to help their loved one maybe get a job, or how to understand what benefits are available to them. It's an unbelievably powerful resource. And we have members on that who live nowhere near Western New York. They're from all over the place. So, I would welcome anybody to join that page if you're a parent or caregiver, or find other pages like that, other resources, other communities, online virtual communities that speak to you and your needs, and connect with them immediately. And it's funny, I hear this from so many parents. It takes them a little while. They may join the group and they just read, and sometimes it's 6 months before they ask a question or before they start to connect. But what I get really excited about is even locally, then when you see some of those parents start to form those friendships, and they're starting to meet each other or bring their children together. So I just, there's so many other opportunities like that to connect with people really all over the world.
Yep.
Yeah, connection. I think connection and community is what we're all looking for on this journey. And yeah, I couldn't agree with you more and how important that is. What is your advice? Like, I know you probably have tons of it, both of you do, but what advice would you give a mom raising children on the spectrum?
Sarah?
You want to go first, Lisa?
I have to
Always?
think about
Yeah,
that
go
one for a
ahead.
second.
This is my new one. And this is something that another mom who is, also an autism mom, and she's maybe 3 or 4 years ahead of me. Always presume competence of your child. Always, always, always. I think as parents and caregivers, we know what's inside, but I think unfortunately, society is making great strides in how they embrace and engage individuals on the spectrum, but it can still, the system is still can be very antiquated. And many parts of the system were set up presuming that individuals maybe aren't competent or don't understand, depending on maybe what their verbal ability is, or what their motor planning may look like, or their inability to regulate from a sensory standpoint. And society sometimes will look at individuals like, woo, maybe they don't understand, or maybe they don't have the intellect or the caring or the, and that's my biggest and strongest advice is, you as a parent, what your child is capable of. They just have some different barriers than others have, and never compromise what your child is capable of. And don't let anybody else tell you that they're not capable, because they're wrong. I can tell you an interesting story. One of our participants who is nonverbal and has pretty severe motor planning issues has recently taken to, as a 20-year-old, has taken to a new form of communication and has started to spell to communicate. And this young man is a genius, right? And he can do mathematics in his head and spit out, unbelievable equations that most people can't do in their head. And it excites me so much to see this happen and to see him blossom. And what's exciting is for others around him to be like, oh my God, this guy's got it all going on. He's a freaking genius, But it also makes me sad because for how many years were people thinking, I don't know if he understands, I don't know if he's processing what we're telling him, probably right in front of him. And that's my other advice. Always, presume competence and never ever talk about your child as if they don't understand and they can't, hear what you're saying. Those would be my two biggest words of wisdom.
That was great. Yeah. I just want to go, yeah.
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 To all of that. Absolutely.
Ditto to that, Sarah. Absolutely. I mean, the only thing I would add to that, and this is maybe for parents a little bit younger than that as well, is just, don't rush things. Your child's gonna get there when they're ready to
Yeah.
get there. And I think that I have consistently been surprised by things that my son has been able to do. So like Sarah said, have I presumed a different level of competency? I don't know, but I do know that it's very rewarding when I look back now and say, and I say to a parent of a younger child, it's going to come. It's going to come. I remember when that happened around 15, or I remember when that happened at 21. I mean, the things that are, just the blossoming that continues to happen. So don't ever rush anything, and don't assume that because it didn't happen at a specific time that it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
And I guess I would also say, don't be afraid to introduce your child to new things. Don't be afraid of the exposure. Don't worry about what other people think or they're going to say. The community at large is going to embrace you. And I think that by exposing our children to as much as we possibly can, they're soaking it all in. It's
Yeah.
just amazing. My guy is a real social person as a result of that, and just loves to be in the community constantly. And I think it's because we've worked hard to make sure that we are always out there doing that. So it wasn't always easy, but
Right.
it's paying off. So
Yeah. Yeah. That's great, great, great advice. I know that I've asked a lot, but I want to check in with both of you and see if there's anything at all that you would like to mention that wasn't mentioned.
The one piece that I get really excited about is our latest program. It's called Full Life Academy, and it's really helped extend the journey through adulthood. As Lisa was saying, her son turns 22, right? 22 next in a couple weeks, right, Lisa?
yes.
And something we hear from parents all the time after the educational services are gone at 21 or now 22 because of COVID, and that bus stops coming. So many young adults and families are left without supports or resources or a continuing education, right? Helping these young adults reach their goals. And we became very aware of that in 2020. So we launched Full Life Academy through AutismUp, and that's a program for 18 and older, even younger, depending on your needs, that helps our students set goals, figure out what they want to do, where they want to work. Do they want to work? Do they want to volunteer? And if so, what do they need to work on to get there, with no time limitations, which is really what Lisa was talking about. So many of the programs that are offered, at least here in New York State, are restricted by time. So you have 3 years to complete these goals. And if you don't, well, then you're out, and we're going to push you over here to this category. And in Full Life Academy, you can take as long as you want. You can pick any of the classes that you want to take. And many of these classes are taught by our community partners. One of my favorite classes is called Safety Awareness, and it's taught by our local sheriff's department, the Monroe County Sheriff's Office. And 4 of their deputies come in once a week for 2 hours, and they teach safety awareness to our young adults with autism. It's been an unbelievable experience, and we're just starting year 4 with them. But what it has done for our young adults with autism is it has taught them about who our local sheriff's department is and who these officers are and how they can go to them in the community if they're in danger or need help. But it's also, just as importantly, it's taught those officers what a young adult with autism may or may not look like and how to approach them. And it's really been a powerful connection but it's just really that I'm just kind of dangling that because that's just one of these amazing partnerships we have in the community. But it's helping students get ready to be more independent in the community on whatever level they're looking for. You know, they don't have to get a job, they don't have to live independently, but if that's what they want to do, we're going to find a class and we're going to find the supports to make sure that their dreams can come true.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. That is so important. And it's win-win, right? Because you've got both sides learning and getting to know each other and understand and spreading
Right.
that awareness. Great. Yeah. Is there anything, Lisa, that you wanted to mention before we go that
Well,
we didn't
I
talk about?
think, you know, like Sarah said, the next frontier for us is really going to be just the whole span of adulthood, frankly. And, you know, for that circle that I talked about, it is cyclical. You know, we started out with support. We still support people wherever they are in their lifespan. And, you know, we were really adamant about creating safe spaces, a safe programming area, a multi-sensory learning environment, which became an incubator for our participants to learn and practice skills and develop their interests safely. And now with our Full Life Academy, we are continuing that, but we're also taking it one step and we're getting our students and the young adults out of the incubator now and back out into the community where they can practice and practically apply the skills that they're learning. So it's really coming full circle. And, you know, we're so looking forward to what the next chapter brings. And, you know, hopefully our next tackle will be housing as well.
Yeah, Lisa,
Living.
tell Bridget what we purchased last week.
Yeah,
What
so
our next big.
yes. So as part of our Full Life Academy, you know, once students can take classes, then they can get into some learning labs and things like that. And we've decided to put our money where our own mouths are and test out what it's going to be like to employ and or develop employment programs with employers for our own children. And we purchased an ice cream truck. And so now we're going to take our financial literacy classes and some of our cooking classes and things on the road where we can go out into the community and expose our students to, you know, real on the job types of things, but in a safe environment. It's just going to be a mobile safe environment, and our community is all about it. They can't wait for us to come and, you know, visit them and, you know, again, be even more supportive of what we're trying to do. So pretty exciting.
I love that. That is hands-on life skill, real world application. And that is, yeah, when they hear that ice cream truck coming, does it play music? Y'all, did you that? That is so fun. The kids are gonna love that. I can't wait to hear more about it. I'm excited about that. What a brilliant idea. So I know that folks are going to want to know where they can find you and more about your work. Where can they go to find you?
They can Google us right at AutismUp, all one word, .org. And there's quite a bit of information available on our website. But if you're not up for that, you can go right into some of the support options, you know, and read and get information, or you can join. You can join our membership and, you know, have access to the information that we put out there through email to our community and beyond. So like Sarah said, with lots of people out there that some people drive in hours for programs every day and others pop in virtually from, you know, other states to participate in some of our programs. So, you know, we always love to meet new people.
Wonderful. And we will also, when we release this episode, give your information for those of you that weren't sure where to go. It will be released with this episode. I can't thank you both enough for taking this time out and offering hope and inspiration and education to our families and teachers and our followers from Mother's Guide. So thank you.
Thank you, Bridget.
Thank you,
Appreciate
Bridget.
what you're doing. Thank you. Keep connecting us. We all need it.
Oh, absolutely. If you enjoyed this episode of Mother's Guide Through Autism podcast, please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We want to reach as many people as we can, and we can't do that without your help. So please take a second and do that if you haven't already done it, and spread the word. And we're just going to keep spreading knowledge, hope, and inspiration. And I'll see you in the next episode. Thank you.